Hey, what's going on? This is Dylan with Dylan Talks Tone, and today we're going to talk about wax potting. Why you would do it, why most pickups are wax potted, and we're actually going to wax pot some pickups. I keep this process super simple. There's a few different ways to do it, but I'm just going to show you. I mean, we make dozens of pickups a week, and this is how I do it. It's not the most complicated. It is not the most high-tech. However, it gives you a way that you could do this at home. So we're going to talk about a few reasons why. First of all, let's talk about why you would wax pot. Basically, as we know, the way a pickup works is the magnetic field above the pickup. It extends above the pickup. The string rides in that magnetic field, and when it moves, it creates inductance in the pickup, which creates an electrical pulse that then goes to our amp. But what we don't want to have happen, in a perfect world, we want everything in the pickup to stay still and just the string to move. If everything starts moving around, then we don't have an accurate transfer of energy. So what can happen, because we have a base plate, we have screws, we have the magnet that sits right in here, for example in a humbucker, we actually have the coils that vibrate themselves. They actually move. See, if you look on a single coil, you know, this is not pulled super tight. Now it can be, but it's not as tight as you would think. These coils can move. All of that motion can cause a couple of things. One, it can cause noise. The top of this pickup here with a cover on it can become basically like a drum, and it'll start vibrating like this, and it will cause a squeal. At a very high frequency, we've all heard that squeal. It's annoying. On a single coil pickup, it can become, especially on a Telecaster pickup like this with a metal plate on the bottom, it can become microphonic to the extent that when you tap on it, you can, or even if you talk into it, everything's vibrating. It's not acting like a microphone, but everything's vibrating so much that you're hearing all these other extraneous noises that aren't the string, which is not desirable most of the time. Telecaster pickup with a cover on it, same thing. This can become microphonic and start to squeal, or when you tap on it, it can cause all kinds of other noises. If we're really being honest, we want the pickup to stay 100% still, and we want the string to be the only thing that moves in relation to the magnetic field. We don't want parts inside the pickup to move independently. The way we do that is we suspend the thing in wax, and all those parts kind of just like freeze in time, and everything stays still. So when my wax heats up, I'm going to show you how we would wax pot these things, because we have a couple of different things here. We have a Telecaster neck pickup or two. We have a couple of humbuckers that have covers on them. We have a humbucker that does not have a cover on it. And then we have some Telecaster single coils that do not, they're just a single coil. So we have a few different types of pickups. We're going to approach this a little bit differently. If you're going to do this at home, I would recommend that you do this outside where it has a good ventilation, because paraffin wax is a petroleum product that can off-gas, and you don't want to do that in your house. Plus, your family might not like the smell, because it does smell a little bit. Okay, let's talk about the mix between paraffin and beeswax that a lot of people use. Like a 80-20, 60-40, there's all these myths about why you would do that. I don't use beeswax. I use 100% paraffin. The melting point is 140 degrees. It's not going to run out of your pickups. It's not going to melt. If you're keeping your guitar in 140 degree temperatures, you have a whole lot of other problems. There's no reason to use beeswax. It's expensive for no reason. The melting point, none of it matters. So we're going to just use paraffin. That's what I always use. We do not vacuum pot, because I like the way a pickup acts when all of the parts are waxed, but the coil is not 100% saturated, and vacuum potting makes sure that everything is 100% saturated. I don't like that. So I don't even do that. Typically, and in this case, I use a $10 crock pot from Amazon. I'll put a link to it in the description. I use Hobby Lobby or some other hobby store paraffin wax that comes in a block. It's in a crock pot. It's sitting outside on the ground. Let me go show you. Super simple. Okay, so here we are outside. Got my little table. Got all my pickups. I need to go and grab a roll of paper towels because you always use a lot of paper towels. And I've got my little $10 crock pot on low. So let's talk about that. You can use a cheap little crock pot like this. I'll leave a link to this in the description. It's the one I'm using, just super simple. However, you have to monitor the temperature. I use an infrared thermometer that I also got on Amazon. I'll leave a link to that too. To keep an eye on the temperature, because if it's too hot, you can end up melting bobbins. Bobbins will melt at about 155 degrees, 150 degrees. I have played with this, and I'll show you even how to put them in the wax a certain way so that they have a less chance of melting when we go to do this. So let me go grab some paper towels. The wax is just about hot, and let's make it happen. Okay, so this is an extreme close-up and you're not seeing anything else but the top of the wax pot, but just bear with me. So this is hot wax. We're gonna start easy. We're gonna start with a single coil pickup. And basically what I'm doing is I like to put these ones face down this way. And if you'll notice, the top of where the metal is, so the metal base plate will actually turn white. That's the wax cooling on something that's colder than itself. Single coils will off-gas little bubbles from all the internal windings where there's air voids in it. And I don't worry about that so much because I don't mind if they stay a little loose in my particular pickups the way we wind them. But what I do care about is that the base plate has a good bond. That's how the wax is what binds, in our case anyway, the base plate to the pickup. So we're just going to let that thing sit until we see it kind of heat up all the way through. See how it's starting to almost look like a sunburst? That means that the wax is getting hotter. It doesn't take long. As we pull them out, we just wipe them off. Get all the wax. It'll take a few minutes of goofing around, getting all the excess wax off, cleaning them up, and making them look nice and clean for the customer. You may have noticed that there's no tape on any of the coils yet. This is because the heat of the wax will break down the adhesive and the tape will fall off in the wax. So I personally don't do this until afterwards. When you watch this video, just remember that there's probably millions of different ways to do this. If you get in the comments and tell me I'm doing it wrong, I don't care. Only because there's just different ways, you know what I mean? Just different ways to do stuff. We are a custom shop that is not very high volume, so we don't need to worry about doing 100 pickups a day. A dozen a day is just fine. Let's do a Telecaster neck pickup. Just drop that baby in there and see how it turns white suddenly like that? That's because it's cool. It's cooler than the wax. Sorry about the wind, but at least we know we're ventilated. It's a little breezy today. I think we have another storm coming in. Okay, when I take the Telecaster neck pickup out, I'm gonna keep it upside down because that's gonna keep the cover full of wax. Because the problem area in a Telecaster neck pickup is the cover becoming microphonic, like with a gap between there. Okay, this is why you need a lot of paper towels. Because once the wax clogs up the paper towel, you need a new one. Let's do a covered humbucker. Now, covered humbuckers, I like to do these face down, but don't kick them around a lot because you don't want to scratch the cover. See all the bubbles coming out? We want to leave it in there long enough to make sure that wax works its way in between all of the metal parts. So the keeper bar, the magnet, the base plate, and more importantly, in the cover. And I'll show you when I take these out what I like to do to make sure that they are correct. Covered humbuckers I like to leave face down like this as long as possible. Same thing with the tele pickups. Anything with a cover on it, it'll keep wax in between the cover and the bobbin for as long as possible, and then as it cools down, it stays where you want it. Alright, so the last one we're going to talk about, for today anyway, is the uncovered plastic bobbin humbucker. So when I put this in, I like to make sure that it is actually face up, because if you put it face down, you have a chance actually of melting the bobbins. So since it's on the base plate, it sets it off the bottom of the wax pot. I have heard of people putting like marbles in the bottom, which is a really good idea. I've just never gotten around to doing it. You heat the wax up, you let it get liquefied like this, and then pour a bunch of marbles in the bottom, and that will give you like a heat sink off of the bottom so that you don't accidentally melt parts, which is actually a really smart thing to do. I just have never done it. And there you have it. In the span of just a few minutes, with a $10 crock pot and about $8 worth of wax, we were able to wax pot 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 pickups. I've got like 3 or 4 more to do. So yeah, I mean, a dozen a day is just fine with me. That's what we do here. I know that there's a lot more professional ways to do it. I know that there's a lot more complicated ways to do it, but this really works for us. So do you really need to wax pot every pickup? Probably not, but to me it's insurance. It doesn't really affect how the pickup sounds so much, except that an unwaxed pickup has a tendency to want to run away on you a little bit, feedback wise and stuff, which in that way I suppose could be fun and could be part of your tone. So in that way I guess it could affect the tone of the pickup, but all things being equal, it doesn't really affect anything other than a feedback situation. Therefore, it's cheap and easy insurance as part of the process to make sure that you can stand in front of a stack of Marshalls cranked and not worry about it. That being said, when somebody calls me and says, can you make your DAF? Can you make your center punch? Can you make your 8-ball and not wax pot it? Absolutely. I'll totally do it for you. Or tele pickups or whatever. Just with the caveat that it's possible that you'll have some feedback problems. Anyway, there you go. Do you need to do it? The jury's always out on that one. That's a choice. But if you want to do it, or if you have these problems with a pickup that you have at home, you can do it with a $10 crock pot and some hobby wax. I'll put a link to all this stuff in the description below and a couple of measurement tools that you'll need to make sure you don't burn anything up. And let me know. Have you tried this yourself? Have you tried unpotted versus potted pickups? Let me know. Put it in the comments. Thanks for hanging out. And we will see you on Thursday for our live FAQ, Q&A, whatever you want to call it, where we talk all about guitar tone, guitar tech stuff, and we get to hang out together. So make sure you get your questions in over on Patreon, patreon.com/DylanTalksTone, and you can come be a part of that. And I hope you enjoyed seeing this part of the pickup making process. Have a good one.